Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at the career of Tony Todd. You know, he sadly passed away just a few days ago.
Yeah.
A lot of people, of course, know him best as Candyman.
Right.
But his career, way more than just horror, I gotta say.
Oh, for sure. We're talking like over 40 years, 240 credits, movies, TV, even video games.
Yeah, the guy was a working machine. It's incredible. And our main source today is a Deadline article that came out, obviously announcing his passing, but also kind of laying out this incredible career. So that's our mission today, uncovering the Tony Todd beyond the scary stuff.
Beyond the typecast, right? Like appreciating the actor, the range that he had.
Exactly. So let's rewind all the way back. Tony Todd was born in Washington, D.C. back in '54. But here's what's interesting. He didn't just, fall into acting. He studied at the Eugene O'Neill National Actors Theater Institute.
Wow.
And the Trinity Rep Conservatory.
That's serious training.
Yeah.
You can see that, in his work. It's not just sort of like learning the lines. He had this presence.
Oh, yeah.
This weight to his performances.
Absolutely, his gravitas.
Which, kind of brings us to his breakthrough role, Platoon.
What a debut, right?
Yeah, talk about debut. The movie wins Best Picture at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And there's Tony Todd playing Sergeant Warren, a heroin-addicted soldier. You can't forget a performance like that.
It's like he arrived fully formed,
Yeah.
Even in a film packed with stars.
So many big names.
He made an impact.
Huge impact. Okay, now picture this. It's the 80s and 90s. You're flipping through channels. Tony Todd is everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking 21 Jump Street, Night Court, Beverly Hills, 90210, you name it, he was probably on it.
But think about that range, though.
It's incredible.
He's not just doing one type of show. He's doing police procedurals. He's doing sitcoms.
Yeah.
It shows that he could adapt to any style.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just doing guest spots. He had recurring roles.
Right.
On shows like Homicide, Life on the Street, The Young and the Restless. This wasn't just luck. It was talent that kept him working.
Right. And those recurring roles, they give you a chance to really sink your teeth into a character.
Oh, yeah.
To show some complexity over time. You're not just there for an episode.
Yeah.
You really get to build something.
Absolutely. Now, of course, we can't talk about Tony Todd without talking about Candyman.
You can't. Yeah.
It's the role that's cemented his place in horror history. He even came back for the sequel. What was that, 2021?
Yeah. And what I think is interesting about him, even when he was playing, quote unquote monsters, he humanized them. Like he actually created backstories.
Really?
For these characters. Like he needed to understand their motivation,
That's incredible.
It wasn't just about being the scary guy.
He didn't just show up and say boo. He really put in the work to make even like a supernatural killer feel real.
Right.
That's amazing. But, it's important to remember, Tony Todd was more than just horror.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can't forget he was doing dramas, like Lean on Me, Colors. He even played Dizzy Gillespie in Bird.
Wow, what a range.
Like all over the map.
Yeah.
Genre-wise.
And then, of course, there's The Crow, right? Right. Blending action and fantasy. And Star Trek.
Oh, yeah?
He wasn't just in like one series.
No?
He popped up in Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. He even did voice work for the franchise.
That's the thing, his voice.
Oh, I know.
That deep, resonant voice, it's perfect, for more than just acting on screen. This whole other career in voice acting.
Oh, absolutely. He was in video games, like Star Trek and Call of Duty, cartoons like Transformers Prime, even Scooby-Doo. It's like he was everywhere.
Everywhere.
Every medium.
It's like a testament to his dedication to the craft. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing good work.
And he kept chasing it right until the end. At the time of his passing, he had over a dozen projects in the works.
That's incredible.
Which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Here's a guy in his late 60s, still passionate, still pushing himself. So before we jump into some of his specific roles, I'm just curious, what are your initial reactions? Are you surprised by how much more there was to Tony Todd than just Candyman?
Honestly, it makes you rethink, how we see actors.
Yeah.
We get so focused on one role, one genre,
Yeah.
that we miss the whole picture.
Yeah, it's like we put them in these boxes, these categories,
Yeah.
and forget that they're capable of so much more.
Yeah, and sometimes those categories limit the roles they even get offered, you know?
Oh, for sure.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. Okay, let's dig into some specific projects that really show off Tony Todd's range. I mean, we touched on Platoon, but it's worth coming back to.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just a big movie. I feel like it really set the tone for his whole career in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Platoon was a cultural moment, you know? And Todd's performance as Sergeant Warren, it's heartbreaking. He brings this intensity to the role, this feeling that he's seen too much.
Oh, for sure.
You know, he's been through it.
And even surrounded by, I mean, these huge names like Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Willem Dafoe, you know, he still holds his own.
He had that thing, you know what I mean? He could be in a scene and you just couldn't take your eyes off him no matter how small the part.
That's so true.
He had that charisma.
Yeah. Now, fast forward a few years to the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a challenge, taking on a role that Dwayne Jones made famous in the original. That's got to be intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
But he totally made it his own.
Yeah, it's fascinating to compare the two. I mean, Jones's Ben was groundbreaking, obviously, for its time.
Yeah.
But Todd brings this physicality, this quiet strength that's almost tragic, you know? It's a different take on the character.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's Candyman.
There it is.
I mean, come on. You say that name, you see Tony Todd's face.
Right. It's iconic.
It's iconic. It's a role that defined him, and he totally owned it.
Oh, yeah. And what's amazing about his Candyman is how he manages to be both terrifying and seductive at the same time.
Yes.
You know, it's this monster, but you almost feel for him. You know, you almost understand where he's coming from.
Oh, for sure. And remember we were talking about how he created backstories for his characters.
Yeah.
Well, for Candyman, he imagined this whole tragic past of victim of racial injustice.
Wow.
Who becomes this vengeful spirit. You know, it's not in the film directly.
Right.
But it informs his entire performance.
It adds this layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Makes his actions even more chilling.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've hit some of the big ones, but what about some of the roles that maybe people don't know as well? Like, what was he like in Lean on Me, Colors, Bird?
Those films, they show you how he could just disappear into a role, no matter what it was.
Yeah.
In Lean on Me, he's this dedicated teacher trying to help his students. You know, Colors, he's a gang member.
Wow.
And then in Bird, he transforms into Dizzy Gillespie.
Ooh, what a range.
I mean, it's incredible.
It's kind of a shame that, you know, those roles get overshadowed by the horror stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're just as good, in my opinion.
Yeah, they show his versatility, his commitment to the craft,
Yeah.
not just to the genre.
Absolutely. And speaking of versatility, you know, we can't forget Star Trek.
Yeah, we touched on that.
We did mention it.
Yeah.
But I mean, he wasn't just like a guest star, right? He played multiple characters across several series. Humans, aliens, you name it.
Well, that deep voice of his, that presence, perfect for sci-fi.
Oh, yeah.
And he could shift from, like, authority to vulnerability in a heartbeat, you know?
Yeah.
Depending on what the character needed.
Amazing. And then, of course, there's the whole voice acting world. I mean, we're talking video games, cartoons, even feature films, Star Trek, Call of Duty, Transformers. His voice, I mean, brought these characters to life.
It's like he understood that acting wasn't limited to being on screen.
Yeah.
You know, he brought the same energy, the same dedication to every project.
Yeah.
Whether you saw his face or not.
And what really strikes me is, you know, he never stopped working. Right up until he passed, he was taking on new roles, new challenges.
It's a reminder that acting wasn't just a job for him, it was a passion.
Yeah.
He loved what he did, and it showed.
It really did. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I mean, what stands out to you most about his work? Like, what's the biggest takeaway so far?
For me, it's the fact that he was so much more than just Candyman.
Yeah.
He was a gifted actor who brought depth and complexity to every role he played, and he did it across this huge range of genres.
Yeah, he was unfairly pigeonholed by those horror roles. His talent was just, it was so much bigger than that.
Exactly, and that's a lesson for all of us, you know? We shouldn't be so quick to put people in boxes.
Right.
There's always more to discover, more to appreciate.
And in part 3, we'll dive into that idea a bit further. What's the legacy of this kind of career? You know, what can we all learn from Tony Todd's approach to acting?
Yeah, it's so easy to get stuck in those categories. See an actor as, you know, just a horror guy or just a comedian. But Tony Todd's career, it's a reminder that there's always more to the story.
It really is, yeah. And I think celebrating that complexity, that willingness to jump between genres, it's important. It's not just about Tony Todd. It's about recognizing that actors and artists in general, really, they don't fit neatly into these boxes.
So true. So let's talk legacy. What do you think Tony Todd's lasting impact will be? Not just on acting, but, on the whole world of entertainment.
Well, first off, he leaves behind this incredible body of work.
Movies, TV, video games. That's a legacy right there. But it goes deeper than that. It's about his dedication to the craft.
Yeah.
His willingness to take risks, to find the humanity in even the darkest characters. That's inspiring for any artist, not just actors.
That idea of finding the humanity even in a monster, that's powerful.
It is.
It shows a level of thoughtfulness, a commitment to going beyond the surface.
Exactly, yeah. He wasn't just there to scare you. He wanted you to understand, to feel something for these characters, even if they were terrifying. And that's a lesson any actor can learn from, I think.
Yeah.
It's not just about the lines.
Right.
It's about the soul of the character.
Yeah, it's about bringing that depth to every performance.
Yeah.
Big or small, hero or villain.
And I think that's part of what made Tony Todd so captivating to watch. You believed him, you felt what he was feeling, even if he was playing something completely outlandish.
You're so authentic. And that's what resonates with an audience, right?
Absolutely.
It's what makes a performance stick with you long after the credits have rolled.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked about his impact on acting, but I want to touch on horror specifically.
Okay.
He played so many iconic roles in that genre, and he seemed to really embrace it.
Yeah, I think Tony Todd, he understood the power of horror.
Yeah.
It's a genre that lets us confront our fears, our anxieties in a safe space.
It's true.
And he wasn't afraid to dive into those dark places, to play those monsters, because he knew there was something valuable there.
He wasn't just doing it for the scares. He was exploring something deeper.
Exactly. And that's what elevates his horror performances. He brings this complexity, this nuance that makes them unforgettable.
Yeah, he made you think. He made you feel, even when you were scared out of your wits.
That's the sign of a great actor, honestly. They don't just entertain, they challenge you, make you question things, feel things you didn't expect.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the life and career of Tony Todd, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder. We've talked a lot about appreciating the full range of an actor's work, looking beyond the obvious. But I think there's a bigger takeaway here.
I agree. I think Tony Todd's career is a reminder that we should always be open to discovering new facets of people, of challenging our own assumptions. We shouldn't limit ourselves or others by putting them in boxes. There's always more to learn, more to explore, more to appreciate.
That's a beautiful thought, and a perfect way to end our deep dive. Go watch some Tony Todd, explore those lesser-known roles, and maybe, just maybe, take a look at the people around you with a fresh perspective. You might be surprised by what you find.
Indeed. There's always more than meets the eye.